All right, so are you ready to dive deep? Today, we're tackling Elon Musk.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to go way beyond those tweets and headlines
Right.
and really try to figure out what makes this guy tick. The guy's like on a mission to reshape the future.
It really is fascinating. You see that push and pull between his ambition, his undeniable genius,
Uh-huh.
and well, let's be honest, his sometimes really confusing actions.
Exactly. It's like, is he a visionary or a villain?
Right.
Maybe a little bit of both. To guide us on this deep dive, we're turning to a really insightful video essay by Johnny Harris. He's a journalist who's just amazing at breaking down complex stuff in a way that, like, you actually get it, you know?
Yeah, he's great.
It's this whole journey through Elon's past, his motivations, and, yeah, some of those controversies that have left people scratching their heads.
It's crucial to go beyond just what he does.
Yeah.
We need to understand the why behind it all. That's how we cut through the hype and really form our own informed opinions.
Okay, so let's rewind back to the beginning. Young Elon growing up in South Africa. The video paints this picture of a kid who was bullied, kind of a loner, but also a total tech prodigy. Like, he taught himself to program
Wow.
and sold his first video game at 12 years old.
That's incredible.
Hmm.
It's interesting because the video also debunks that whole myth that Elon came from a super wealthy family.
Oh, really?
Yeah, his dad was an emerald importer,
Yeah.
not a mine owner like some people believe.
That
So they weren't struggling by any means, but they weren't like rolling in cash either.
changes things. There's this perception that he had this easy path to success, you know?
Right.
But it seems like that grit, that determination to prove himself have always been a part of him. It makes you wonder, would he even be where he is today without those early challenges?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
It's impossible to know for sure, but, adversity often fuels ambition.
Yeah.
And that drive definitely propelled him to his first big wins in Silicon Valley.
Okay, so we're talking Zip 2, right?
Exactly. An early version of online mapping and directories, way before Google Maps was even a thing.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Zip 2 was a huge deal back then.
It was. And he ends up selling it for a cool $307 million. Not a bad start, right?
Oh, not bad at all.
But that was just the beginning. Elon used those funds to co-found X.com, which later became the online banking giant PayPal. And that was sold to eBay for a mind-blowing $1.5 billion.
Okay, so at this point, he's a certified multimillionaire. You'd think maybe he'd kick back, relax, enjoy the fruits of his labor.
Right. Take a break.
But nope, not Elon. He sets his sights on even bigger, even crazier ventures, SpaceX, Tesla, and that's when things get really wild.
And that's where we see that signature Elon Musk speed and scale. It's not about making money anymore. It's about tackling challenges that most people consider impossible. And this relentless drive, it's really a defining characteristic of his leadership style. And it's had a major impact on the tech industry, especially in Silicon Valley.
Definitely. And some argue that this whole move fast and break things mentality has fostered a culture of overwork and burnout.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What do you think about that?
I mean, it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, you have incredible advancements happening at, warp speed.
Uh-huh.
But on the other hand, there's a human cost to that pace.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder about the long-term sustainability of that approach.
Absolutely. Now let's talk Tesla. Elon comes in with this vision of making electric cars mainstream, not just a luxury for the elite. He's not just building cars. He's trying to fundamentally change the entire auto industry, move it away from fossil fuels.
He's all about disruption.
And he's not afraid to disrupt the status quo to achieve that goal. Tesla is known for its cutting-edge technology, sleek designs, and that focus on sustainability. What I find really bold is his decision to open source Tesla's patents.
Oh, yeah, that was a big move.
He basically said, hey, anyone can use this technology to help advance the whole industry.
It's a very different approach from that traditional, fiercely competitive mindset.
For sure.
By sharing his knowledge, he's betting on accelerating the growth of the entire electric vehicle market.
Which ultimately benefits Tesla as well. It's a long-term strategy that requires a lot of confidence in your own ability to stay ahead of the curve. But, let's be real. There's another side to Elon, the one who loves to throw a flamethrower into the mix just for kicks.
Ah, yes. The Boring Company.
Ha!
What started as a serious effort to revolutionize tunnel-based transportation quickly became like a showcase for Elon's more eccentric side.
You mean like flamethrowers and weird perfumes?
Exactly. Digging tunnels for loop rides. It's hard to know what's serious and what's just for show.
It's like he's a mad scientist with a billionaire's budget.
Kind of.
And we can't forget Neuralink, his company working on brain-computer interfaces.
Right.
Or Starlink providing internet access via satellites. He even co-founded OpenAI, the people behind ChatGPT,
Wow.
before disagreements led him to start his own AI company, xAI. Clearly the man has a thing for the letter
He
X.
does. It's this constant pushing of boundaries, this insatiable curiosity that makes him both fascinating and frustrating.
Okay, so let's talk about those frustrations, because the video doesn't shy away from the less flattering aspects of Elon's leadership. What's the good, the bad, and the ugly?
Well, Johnny Harris interviews people who've worked closely with Elon, and they paint a complex picture. On the positive side, he's described as brilliant, detail-oriented, and constantly questioning assumptions. He sets incredibly ambitious deadlines and attracts top talent inspired by his vision.
He sounds like a whirlwind of energy, to say the least.
He is, and that intensity can have its downsides.
Mm.
He's known for being blunt, demanding, and not particularly concerned with being liked.
Yeah.
One person in the video even said it's like he cares deeply about humanity as a whole, but not necessarily about individual humans.
Ouch. That's
Yeah.
a tough one to hear. And the video also touches on the conversation around Elon's behavior and whether it relates to him being on the autism spectrum.
It's a nuanced topic for sure. Johnny Harris, the video essayist, actually shares his own experience as a parent of an autistic child. He acknowledges that there's a line between neurodiversity and actions that are harmful, and he feels that Elon sometimes crosses that line.
So we've got this incredibly complex figure, brilliant, ambitious, but also capable of being abrasive and even hurtful. By 2021, he reaches a new level of success. He becomes the world's richest man.
Wow.
But as we'll see, that title didn't exactly bring him peace and contentment.
It actually seemed to have the opposite effect. His biographer, Walter Isaacson, pointed out that Elon thrives in chaos and conflict. Success made him uncomfortable. He needed a new challenge, a new battle to fight, and, well, he found one.
And that battle was Twitter. In 2022, he drops this bombshell announcement. He's buying the platform for a jaw-dropping $44 billion. Talk about shaking things up.
It sent shockwaves through the tech world and beyond. Immediately, he starts implementing his trademark hardcore work style at Twitter, leading to mass layoffs, a complete overhaul of the platform's structure. It was chaotic, to say the least.
He doesn't do anything halfway, does he?
No. But why Twitter? What was he really hoping to achieve? He gave three main reasons for buying the platform, and honestly, they've sparked a ton of debate.
Yeah. His first reason was promoting free speech. He framed it as crucial for a functioning democracy, arguing that Twitter had the potential to become a global platform for open dialogue.
Okay, that sounds like a noble goal, but things got complicated pretty quickly, didn't they?
They did. His second stated motive was to counteract what he perceived as a liberal bias embedded in Twitter's San Francisco culture.
Interesting.
This is a controversial claim, and as we'll see later, the data doesn't really back it up.
Right. And his third reason was to stop what he alleged was government censorship happening on the platform. We'll delve into that more later on, but it turns out there were some unexpected twists to that story.
A lot of twists and turns.
So you have these three motivations: championing free speech, combating liberal bias, and pushing back against government censorship. The question is, did his actions actually align with these lofty goals? That's what we'll unpack next.
It's going to be interesting because, as we'll discover, Elon's Twitter takeover was less about upholding principles and more about, well, power control and maybe a dash of chaos just for fun.
Maybe more than a dash.
So Elon takes over Twitter, promising this like free speech utopia, right? But it seems like his actions ended up telling a very different story.
Yeah, it's true. His actions often contradicted his words. Like, he reinstated some previously banned accounts,
Okay, like who?
like Donald Trump, Kathy Griffin. But then he also started artificially boosting his own tweets.
Oh, really?
Yeah, putting his voice above everyone else's. That doesn't exactly scream free speech for all, does it?
It does seem like a bit of a double standard. If you're all about giving everyone a platform, why manipulate the system to amplify your own voice? It just doesn't add up.
And gets even more complicated. He went on to ban journalists who were critical of him, limited Substack links, declared cisgender a slur, and even sued organizations for criticizing Twitter.
Hold on, he sued people just for criticizing him?
He did. And he actually lost that lawsuit. The court basically ruled that he was trying to stifle criticism and discourage others from speaking out against him.
So much for free speech, huh? It feels less like he's taking a principled stance and more about maintaining control.
Yeah, that's the conclusion that Johnny Harris, the video essayist, arrives at as well. This wasn't about creating a level playing field for diverse viewpoints. It was about controlling the narrative, stirring up controversy, and silencing dissent.
Okay, so the free speech argument seems pretty shaky. What about his claim that Twitter had this inherent liberal bias because it was based in San Francisco?
Well, the video cites a study that directly contradicts that claim. This study was conducted before Elon even bought Twitter, and it analyzed millions of tweets from 7 different countries, including the U.S.
So what did they find? Was there actually a liberal bias?
Actually, no. They found the opposite. In 6 out of the 7 countries, including the U.S., the political right actually had more algorithmic amplification than the left.
Wow. So if anything, there was a conservative bias on Twitter before Elon took over.
That's what the data suggests. And to make the study even more compelling, the researchers factored in variables like the number of followers each account had and how often they tweeted. They weren't just looking at raw numbers. They were trying to account for the complexities of how the algorithm actually works.
That's a really important detail because it adds a lot of credibility to their findings. So this whole idea that Twitter was some kind of liberal echo chamber was basically debunked.
It seems that way. And it highlights the importance of looking at data and research rather than just accepting claims at face value. It's easy to get caught up in narratives, but we need to be critical thinkers and examine the evidence.
Absolutely. Now let's move on to his third claim that the government was censoring Twitter. The video does acknowledge that there was some truth to this.
Yeah, the Twitter files, which Elon released after taking over, did reveal instances where Twitter, under the previous management, had complied with government requests to suppress certain information. And sometimes those requests had a political slant.
Right. The Hunter Biden laptop story is probably the most well-known example.
Exactly. That story was heavily censored on Twitter in the lead-up to the 2020 election.
But here's the thing. Didn't government censorship actually increase after Elon took over? That seems pretty ironic.
It is pretty surprising. The video presents data showing that Twitter now complies with over 80% of government censorship requests, compared to around 50% before Musk's takeover.
So he buys Twitter, claiming to be a champion against government censorship, and then censorship actually goes up under his watch. What's the explanation for that?
Well, the video explores a few possible reasons. One is that Elon's stance on government censorship seems to be inconsistent. For example, it points to instances where Twitter, under his leadership, banned accounts in Turkey and India at the behest of their governments. And these accounts have been critical of those governments.
But hadn't Twitter previously pushed back against similar attempts at censorship?
Yes. There's an example in the video from a previous Turkish election where the government tried to censor posts about corruption. Twitter refused to comply, even though it meant being temporarily shut down in Turkey. They argue that free speech is essential, especially when it comes to holding those in power accountable.
So what changed? Why the shift in approach under Elon?
It's a question worth considering. The video suggests that Elon's other business interests might be playing a role.
Ah, so the conflict of interest issue comes into play.
Exactly. Remember, he has Tesla, SpaceX, and other ventures operating globally. It's possible that he's making decisions on Twitter based on what's best for his other companies rather than what aligns with his stated principles of free speech.
So profit over principle.
It's a possibility that the video raises. And adding to the concern is the lack of transparency. Now, Twitter used to publish detailed reports about government censorship requests, but they've stopped doing that under Elon.
So we're basically left to speculate about his motives and the true extent of government influence on the platform. Not exactly a reassuring situation.
Not at all. This lack of transparency erodes the principles of accountability and openness that he claimed to champion when he bought Twitter.
So where do we go from here? What's the main takeaway from this deep dive into Elon's Twitter saga?
Well, the video ends on a rather sobering note. It suggests that Elon's recent actions seem to betray his original vision for the betterment of humanity. His employees feel betrayed. His focus has shifted from building to battling, and his online behavior seems to be devolving.
It's true. It's like he's gone from launching a car into space to constantly picking fights on Twitter. It's a strange and disappointing turn of events.
The video poses a thought-provoking question. Has Elon become addicted to crisis and attention, undermining the very goals he claims to champion? It's something to really think about.
It really is. We've been exploring this picture of a brilliant, innovative, but deeply flawed individual. Someone who can achieve incredible things, but also seems to be self-sabotaging in a very public way.
It's a reminder that separating hype from reality is more crucial than ever in this age of information overload. It also highlights the complex and often troubling relationship between power technology and the future of online communication.
And it makes you wonder what this all means for the future of Twitter and for the future of Elon Musk himself.
Absolutely. It's a story that's still unfolding, and it will be fascinating to see what happens next.
Yeah, it really does make you think about the whole trajectory he's been on. It's like, remember when he launched that car into space?
Oh, yeah.
That felt like peak Elon, you know, audacious, visionary, kind of absurd. But now it feels like the absurdity is taking over.
Right.
It's overshadowing all the good he's done.
And that's the really unfortunate part.
Yeah.
Because beneath all the bluster and the online feuds. There's this genuine desire to solve these big problems,
Yeah.
to push humanity forward.
Right.
But it seems like the methods he's using now are doing the opposite. They're creating division, eroding trust, and frankly, they're distracting from the real work that needs to be done.
The video essayist uses a really powerful term to describe this corrosive effect.
Oh, wow.
It's like Elon's behavior, his whole approach to Twitter is eating away at something essential, not just in the tech world, but in our broader society.
Yeah, I think that's a very apt description. And it's not limited to just Twitter. This pattern seems to be repeating across his various companies.
Really?
Employees who were once inspired by his vision are now disillusioned, even feeling betrayed.
Wow.
And customers who once admired his ambition are starting to question his motives.
So what can we learn from all of this? What's the key takeaway from this deep dive into the enigma of Elon Musk?
Well, I think the video challenges us to really think critically about leadership, about the relationship between power and responsibility. Elon's story is kind of a cautionary tale,
Yeah.
reminding us that brilliance and good intentions don't automatically guarantee positive outcomes.
It's a reminder that actions speak louder than words, right? And that even the most brilliant minds can succumb to ego, to hubris, to the allure of well-being the center of attention.
It's true. It also raises important questions about the future of these online platforms, the role of social media in shaping public discourse, and the power dynamics at play when billionaires control these vital channels of communication.
It's a lot to consider. And honestly, I finished that video with more questions than answers, like, what's next for Elon? Will he continue down this path of conflict and controversy? Or can he somehow rediscover that spark of idealism that initially fueled his extraordinary achievements?
Those are the big questions.
Yeah.
And ultimately, only Elon can answer them. But I think what's crucial for us as consumers of information, as citizens navigating this increasingly complex digital world, is to remain engaged, to think critically, and to never stop asking those tough questions.
We can't afford to be passive bystanders in all of this. We have a responsibility to understand the forces that are shaping our world.
Absolutely.
And to make our voices heard.
Exactly. So that wraps up our deep dive into the world of Elon Musk. It's a complicated story full of contradictions, triumphs, and let's be honest, some truly head-scratching moments.
For sure.
But hopefully this conversation has given you some food for thought, some new perspectives, and maybe even sparked a desire to explore these issues further.
Because that's what it's all about, right? Not just passively absorbing information, but engaging with it, challenging it, and forming our own informed opinions.
Absolutely. And remember, there's always more to learn. We encourage you to check out that video essay we discussed today. Johnny Harris does a phenomenal job of weaving together research interviews and personal insights to create a truly thought-provoking piece of journalism.
And as always, we want to hear from you. What stood out to you in this deep dive? What questions are still lingering in your mind? Share your thoughts, your disagreements, your aha moments with us. Because the conversation doesn't end here. This is just the beginning.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.